he's always been very well respected around the league. Maybe not as well known as other people in his class, but excellent player. Fits the modern game, just the way he shoots the ball and his own defensive abilities with his length and his abilities. So he's a key part of their team.
Coach, you mentioned how difficult it is to guard this team, particularly without Draymond out there. Is that more of a game plan thing, or is that just more effort and communication between the other guys?
It's mostly effort and communication. It's not so much game plan. There's not a ingenious scheme that we're going to come up with. It's having the discipline to have multiple efforts on the same play. So they're gonna attack coming downhill and spread the floor and swing the ball, and you got to be able to rotate once and rotate again and rotate a third time, and then you got to box out, and you got to do all that over and over and over again. So that's sort of the modern NBA, but playing against Milwaukee, they probably expose you to those types of rotations and that type of court coverage as well as anybody.
Steve, what's your sense of how much Kevin embraces these kind of challenges and maybe matching up against the guy?
I think Kevin loves these games, playing against other great players, great teams. He thrives on this type of challenge, and I know he's very excited about the game tonight.
Steve, when we spoke before the season, you spoke kind of how you thought that, obviously third time through trying to win a title is a grind, but you felt that this team was refreshed because of the offseason, the trip to China and all those different things. 11 games in it, how has that kind of manifested on the court? Have you seen that energy start to fade at all, or is this team still?
No, I think we've got a really good vibe. Everybody's excited coming into the building every day. The young guys are giving us a really good infusion of energy and competition. They're all playing for their careers, playing for playing time, and you need that level of competition. And it's a nice balance to our returning vets who need more recovery and more rest. So we've found this really good balance, and I think everybody is really excited, and we're playing well and having fun. And so I love the start that we're off to.
I think 2 games ago, McKinney played the last 16, 17, and then last game he played the last 15, 33, whatever, fourth quarter plus. And you almost never do that. Was that by accident, or how does it? Is he someone who can just run all night? How has that worked out with him playing so many minutes a game?
Well, I think if I remember correctly, in the last game we pulled away, and he's in that unique position to be both a guy who could be in there at key times in the game, and also a guy who needs to clean up minutes at the end when we're resting our vets. And so I think that's what happened last game. We broke open a close game, and we take our regulars out mid fourth quarter, and he's going to stay. And he's 26. He's thrilled to be in the NBA. He's never going to ask me to come out. He's in great shape. So playing 16, 17 straight minutes is easy enough for him. And he's just been the perfect fit. We couldn't be happier with what he's doing and how much he's providing for us.
In the previous game it was close. Fourth. Are you thinking, my God, I'm playing Alfonso McGiddy for the entire fourth quarter of a...
We talked about it in training camp about the idea that we could play him at the 4. He's got the size and the ability to switch everything defensively. And as you know, with our bigs, we're not always stretching the floor with our 4 and the 5, and so he gives us a little more capability playing the 4 to really open up the floor. So I think that's part of the idea. He gives us a different look than what we normally would have with Loon or Jordan Bell. It gives us a little bit of what Jonas is doing with this floor spacing, but with the added benefit of the speed and the switchability in the backcourt as well.
Everybody's talking about pace of play this year and how it's kind of kicking the overdrive. In your eyes, what's the main mechanism of that? Are teams getting it up the court to make it work faster? Are they shooting faster once they get past midcourt? Do the rule changes have anything to do with it?
I think the rule changes maybe help a little bit, but it's more just the trend of where the league's been going over the last decade. I think this is pace has been increasing, and then I think at the risk of sounding like I'm bragging for our team, I think the success that we've had playing really fast has led to some other teams saying, you know what, that makes some sense. I know that it's always been a copycat league, and when teams have success playing a certain style, a lot of teams try to emulate that. But I think it's also a style that's conducive to watchability. So I'm guessing there's some owners and GMs out there who are saying, hey, look, our fans would much rather watch a fast game than a slow one. That's kind of the idea behind the rule changes too. So it's all sort of heading in the same direction, but it has been for I think for like the last decade. But it seems to be sort of coming to a head now.
And if I can just follow up with one question, you guys have pushed the pace pretty well ever since you got here, but at this point, do you feel comfortable with your team playing at any pace? If you face an opponent that slows it down, you're pretty comfortable with that?
Yeah, and look, we've been in the playoffs, deep in the playoffs 4 years now. A really fast game that happens in November doesn't even resemble what you see in May and June, and so you have to be prepared for what's coming. And what's coming is you got to be a two-way team. You got to be able to defend, and you got to be able to score. And that's what we're trying to build towards. I don't care where we rank in pace. I have no idea where we rank in pace. Does anybody know?
25. I think it's low.
Are we 25th?
That's what I thought.
Maybe I do care. We got to be faster.
Change the point guard.
Coach, you were kind of in a similar position to Coach Bud when you took over here in terms of having all of your core pieces kind of intact, just making slight stylistic changes. What have you seen from Coach Bud in terms of implementing his style, and how do you think he's gotten them playing this well so quickly?
Well, Mike has been playing this way in Atlanta. His team 3 years ago, they won 60-plus games, really stretched you out, shot a ton of threes. I remember we went down there in that 2015 season, and Mike Scott hit like 4 threes in that game, as a four-man. And David Lee was out trying to chase him around, and it just sort of symbolized what was happening around the league in terms of the three-point shot. But Mike, I think, was one of the first proponents of really shooting a lot of these threes, and he's obviously amped it up even more with Milwaukee, and he knows he's got a superstar to play around with Giannis. So he knows what he's doing. He's a really good coach. He's putting defenses in a very difficult position.
Steve, Kevon might not be the most athletic guy in the world, but he doesn't seem to make a lot of mistakes. Is that a quality that you've seen in him since day one, that you've been working with him, or has he really developed that in the past couple of years?
Well, I think he possessed the natural feel for the game the day he got here. Some guys just have that sense, and other guys don't. I think the key for Kevon came at the beginning of last year, in the off season before last season, when he really got himself in good shape. His first couple of years he was hampered by those hip injuries, and so he's always had the basketball mind and the feel. In the last couple of years, he's been able to put himself in a place physically where he could match his mind. And now we've got both. We've got a guy who can stay out on the floor and defend against anybody, and set great screens and get offensive rebounds and execute our offense. And so we're lucky to have him.
Steve, I get the social consciousness question. 311 days gone in 2018, 307 mass shootings. Do you care to comment?
only that I just feel devastated for the victims and their families, and I've read a lot about it today. And it's just horrifying, and it's so sad for the families involved and for the young people who lost their lives. It's devastating for everybody. And I know we're gonna have a moment of silence out here tonight. We had one last week. I think we're probably gonna have one next week. It's the reality until we do something about it. So it's beyond sad. It's devastating. Thank you.
Is that it? Great, thank you.